Hi there, good afternoon everyone. Hope you've had a nice lunch. I'm trying to talk and count, which is never an easy thing to do because I just suddenly realised I haven't actually done the first line of the crochet for the blanket, which lots of you hopefully have already done if you joined last week. If you did miss last week and wondering what on earth I'm talking about, we're talking about making a multi-stitch blanket. So I'm sat on mine at the moment. So it's basically a blanket where every line is a different stitch. It looks kind of like fun and random at the end, but the other really good advantage to this project, it really builds up your confidence in all the different stitches, and then you can you'll like some, you won't like so many, and then you'll be really confident to go out and try different patterns that you see online. Hopefully I'm hoping to help you learn how to kind of read a pattern as well, the UK terms versus the American terms, which is often something that can kind of trip people up. And also today we're going to do something using a picture pattern, which is also, I find as a visual learner, quite a good way to do things. Last week I showed you the cushion I made as well. So at some point I'll explain a little bit more about how I put that together. And then also I talked, hiya Tricia, how you doing? I talked about making twiddle muffs for people with dementia. There's a lady, a customer of mine here at the studio who is a nurse, and she's asked my customers if we'll put them together. So I'm having a go at making one, and I'm using the multi-stitch blanket technique, and I've only got a few more rows to go, and then I've got a little idea to finish it off. So hopefully in next week's session, if I've had time to finish it, I'll run through how that was made. I'm even happy to send you our address here because the lady who asked for them said she'd be happy to come and collect them from us here. I'm also hoping to add a few beads and jangly things that we've got around the place. So last week we had a great time, and I had like this camera over me, and it was all a bit last minute because my camera wouldn't connect, and then I had to go and get my dad and use his camera, and he's not here today. I'm back at work. And I've tried 2 phones here and I can't get it to work. So I'm just gonna blag it a little bit. I'm going to talk to you here. I'm going to show you something, and then we are going to have to just tilt the laptop. So it's going to be a little bit confusing because you're going to see things upside down, I think. I haven't really figured that out. That was about 5 minutes ago. I realized it wouldn't work. So we'll go with the flow. We'll definitely do 1 or 2 stitches today. And if there's any problems, I can go over them again next week when I'll probably be at home and make sure my dad's there, and then he can then I can use his phone that for some reason works whilst mine don't. So I'm just going to double check the amount of chains I've got here. So if you're adding on to the thing you made last week, you can just carry on. If you're starting again with some scrap yarn, we're looking at 12 chains. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I've got a bit over, but actually I do need a bit extra. I'll explain why now. So what we're going to do today is we're going to work from this diagram here. As you can tell, it's been made by me, and I'm going to talk about it a little, and then we're going to have a little go at doing it. So yeah, Miles is helping me today. So if you wouldn't mind showing that. So that's my little scanned version. And then after the session, I'll pop it in the comments so you can have your own copy of it. So this is your little introduction to drawn patterns. Now, if you look along the bottom, there's the key for this. So where there's a little 0, I'm going to be talking about the amount of chains that you need to add. Where there's like a little T shape, a little kind of cross, that's double crochet. So that's the one we did last week. And then I've put in brackets at the bottom, that's the one where you start it without doing a yarn over first. It's the single crochet in America. Then the next one, the T shape, that's my favorite stitch. That's the half treble crochet. And then I've put a little description underneath. That's where you put a yarn over at the beginning, and then you pull through all 3 at the end. So that can be a bit fiddly when you're learning, but a nice fast stitch. I find the half treble. The treble crochet was the 3rd one we did last week. And that's the one where you yarn over at the beginning, and then you kind of pull through 2 hoops kind of twice. I'll go through all these in a minute, but I just want you to kind of understand this picture before we come back to my hands. And then the final one is the double treble, which is a funny looking stitch, but this is why I taught it to you last week. It's because it's a nice tall stitch, and it's going to help create these waves. By the way, I think you can see me a little there. The waves are those middle row there. So this stuff here. So one of our favourite stitches, and lots of people have continued to do more of these projects and just use the wave stitch only. It's a firm favourite of everyone who's done the multi-stitch blanket with me. All right, so where we're going to be starting is on the bottom right there, just above the double crochet symbol there. And you've got the start here, and that's, can you see, it's a foundation row of 12 double crochets. So all you've got to do is for that one, I think you should be able to do that without showing my hands for a second, because I just want to talk a little bit more. But that's the one where you go in, you pick up the thread from behind, then you do a yarn over, and then you pull through 2. So it's kind of the simplest and the most common of all the stitches. So you're looking to have just a baseline of 12 of those. So just going in, picking up the yarn from behind, and then yarning over and pulling through 2. Now, what I forgot to mention is you'll see there's one chain at the beginning. That chain is the turning chain. So that kind of makes up for the height. So if, like me, you started with 12, you did actually need to start by adding an extra 1. So 12 chains plus 1 for the height. And that makes kind of 13 temporarily, but then you miss that first chain and then you go into the next 12. So I'm just going to check my V's on the top surface and see how I'm getting on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12. Let's have a look. Anyone else joining? Anyone else going to be having a go? It was nice to see a couple of pictures last week of people who'd managed to keep up and make the sample. And it'd be great to know if you continued to then go and start making a blanket. And if you, like I said, if you don't know what I'm talking about, go back to the videos on Virtual Village Hall page. Maybe we could add a link in a moment, and then you'll be able to see that video and like start from the beginning. But feel free to join this one now if you fancy a bit of wave stitch. So yeah, I'm hoping if you are joining us, you've managed to do 12 double crochets. And what we're going to do next, I'll talk through the next row and then we'll put my hands back on. Okay. So where we are now is we're actually, I always forget where we start now. We're on wave row 1 on the right hand side. Can you see that written? What we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing 3, looking at the key, 3 double crochet, then one T, can you see that? Half treble crochet, so we're working from left to right, then 1 treble crochet, then 3 at the peak of the wave, 3 treble crochet, and then we start the decrease again. So then we go back to a 1 treble, 1 half treble, then 3 double, and then we start the next wave. So we go up to the peak and down. This all sounds totally mad at this stage, but once you start seeing how it grows, I think you're going to love this. So yeah, so Miles, if you don't mind putting my camera back on main. I always sit by here and it's like the sun's right there and I can see my eyes look really tired. I promise I'm not tired. I'm just sitting in a bad position. So like I said, this unfortunately is going to be upside down for you. Maybe you could switch your phone around. Like I said, I'll make sure next week when we do some more difficult stitches that I sort my phone situation out. All right, so always when you do a double crochet, you need to build up that height. So the first thing you're going to need to do is 1 chain. Okay, so that's built up that height there. So I just did 1 chain by there. I'm going to ignore that chain that I just made, and I'm about to put 3 double crochets in those first 3 stitches. So just a reminder that a double crochet is where you go in, I'll go a little bit closer if possible, go in, you pick up the thread from behind, then you yarn over, and then you pull through 2 hoops at once. Okay, so just the same as the row you just did if you're joining me. Okay, then next hole, go in, pick up the thread from behind, yarn over, pull through 2. Third time, in, pick up, yarn over, pull through. Okay, so on that diagram now, you've done 3 of the double crochets. Now we need to do a slightly taller stitch because we're building up to the height of the wave. So this time you need to do a yarn over first, then go into the next hole. And remember, it's always the one below the little V on the top of the surface. Pick up the thread from behind. So you've got the 3 on your crochet hook, and then yarn over and then pull through all 3 like so. All right, so that's the half treble crochet that we did last week. The next one is a slightly bigger one again. So that's where you do a yarn over, you go into the hole, you pick up the thread from behind, all right, so that you have 3 on again. And then this time you do yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. So it's a slightly taller stitch, and that's the treble crochet. So we've done 1 half treble and 1 treble. Now we're at the peak of the wave, so we need to add 3 double treble crochets. So this is a little bit more unusual, this stitch. So that's where you yarn over twice, okay? Then go into the next hole, pick up the thread from behind, okay? And then you should have 4 hoops on your hook. And then you do yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Okay, need to do that again. So 2 more times. So yarning over twice, into the next V, underneath the V, pick up the thread from behind, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Okay, I think one more time. Yes, I haven't done it twice. So it's quite a lot of steps to this stitch, but it is, if you use just this stitch for a row, you super fast go through the height of your stitch, which is a nice experience. 1, 2, 3 double treble crochets. So can you see my wave is starting to go up, and now this one here, actually the middle one, was the peak. So now I'm going back down the other side. Now obviously this sample is pretty small, so you're only going to get into the flow of making 1 wave, and then you'll be adding to the top. But this is perfect for practice. The great thing with this stitch is you really get into the rhythm of it, and also it's quite easy to see if you forget where you are, because there's 3 long stitches and 3 short stitches, so you can it's quite obvious when you've done a few rows, so you can kind of quickly figure out what stitch you need to do next, and like that picture pattern helps quite a lot. So we got the treble crochet to go next, so that's the yarn over into the hole, picking up, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Oh, great. So yeah, so Trisha looks like she's figured out how to see it the right way around. She says she's watching on an iPad. She's locked the screen, so I guess so it doesn't swivel. And then she's physically turned the iPad around so she can see it the right way around. Thanks, Trisha, for being a tech genius. That's a great tip for anyone else who's watching it. It's funny how we've had to adapt, isn't it, to these sort of things. That was a half treble crochet, so that's where I pulled it through all 3, and then finally I'm finishing with a double crochet in there, so that's where you just go straight in, and you should have 1 more. It seems very small, my last hole, but there is a hole just about there, so I should have, that's my 12. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That's right. Yeah. So you should finish on a double crochet. Okay. So actually, Miles, would you mind putting the picture back up, the PDF? Oh, he's good, isn't he? So what you'll see here is we've currently stopped at, if we're looking at the blue row at the bottom there, we've stopped after 2 of the double crochets. Just because our sample is so small. But if you were to carry on your real blanket, you would be doing a 3rd double crochet. Then you just carry on repeating that pattern, doing a half treble, a treble, 3 trebles, and then going back down again for as long as you needed until you got to the end of your blanket. Then can you see just above that there's another row, and you need to then put a whole row of doubles on top. So on top of every single stitch, you're going to be putting a row of doubles. And this was something I didn't do the first time I did my blanket. I don't know if I can find the one that I did wrong, but the first time I did this stitch, I just went straight in and did the next wave. But I found because crochet kind of overlaps the previous stitch so much that the wave just looked a bit small and insignificant. So this double crochet is just going to kind of make them a little bit taller. And then when you go into them on the next row, which I'm about to show, which I'll show you in a moment, then you've got like a whole new row to go. It makes the stitch look much nicer. I guess maybe I should just say, just trust me, I didn't like it when I didn't do this. So even though it's a bit boring, doing a row of doubles. Look at where tail is odd. Will there be one side even row? I'm just looking at the question from Ruth. I'm not sure if I understand it. It's odd. I'll come back to that. I'm just thinking if I can think what that means. If you can explain it in another way, just so I'd be sure. So we're staying with the same colour now, and then I can go back to me if you like, Miles. And then we're just going to do a row of doubles along the top of all 12 of those stitches. And I just sneakily then put in an extra chain. So if you, I'm kind of automatically do that whenever I do a double crochet. So I've just added a chain, which I'm instantly going to ignore. And I'm going to go into the top 12 V's of that row I just did. So that's the one, the simplest of the stitches, going in, picking it up, and then pulling it through 2. So if you could do 12 double crochets along the entire row of your wave. 1, 2, 3. Tail is. There we go. And possibly, I'll show you in a second how to change colour at the end. And I'll show you how to do the next row, because obviously it needs to be the opposite. Okay, so the 12th stitch, the 12th double crochet, I've gone in as normal. I'm picking up the thread as normal, and then I'm finding a new colour. And that's the one that's going onto my crochet hook rather than the original colour. So just on the last pull through, I'm just putting that new colour on and pulling that through. I'm going to tighten those up like so. All right. And I'm ready for my next row. The right side. So on the right side, I don't know that there is a right side and a wrong side to this work, really. This blanket looks, this stitch, I think, looks nice on both sides. So I don't know that you need to worry about that, but I know what you mean. I guess because we've got that foundation row that just kind of had something to get started into. It switched it around a bit, but we're looking at kind of doing the curve, the wave row, and then the double crochet on top. And then the next row, sorry, Miles, do you mind just putting it up one more time? Can you see we're now on the green row here? So wave row number 2, it says on the right-hand side. I've actually put the chains on the wrong side, really. The chains, you see the 3 chains are over there on the left-hand side of the picture. I should need to change. As you can tell, I'm not going to write a crochet book anytime soon, but having a go. So you're going to do 3 chains, and then we're going to do double treble, double treble, double treble 3 times in a row. So they're going to sit on top of the previous row's double, and then we're going to decrease and go through the wave process all over again. I just thought something to tell you. Yeah, it blew my mind for a while that I thought that I had to do the opposite to what I finish with, but of course you don't, because you've actually, because of that row of doubles, you've taken yourself back to where you started. So you're always, however long your blanket's going to be, you're always either going to start with doubles or you're going to start with double trebles on top of each other all the way up. So you don't have to worry about where you end, if that makes sense. That took me, it takes me a while every time to remember that, but I'm glad I've remembered to tell you that now. So yeah, so I'm going to chain 3. I've actually realized last week I chained 4 for half treble. I'm a bit random. Whatever takes your fancy, 3 or 4. It just needs to be quite tall. All right, Miles, I'm ready to come back to me. All right. So, double treble in the first stitch. So you're just going yarn over twice, then going into the hole, which is the V there. If you want to weave your ends in as you go, you can pick up both and put them on top of the crochet hook, okay? Then make sure that the colour that you're pulling through is the nearest to the hook, and then that's the one that comes through. That does take a bit of practice, but that could be a good way if you don't like weaving in all your ends at the end. You should, at that point, when you pull that through, you should have 4 hoops on your hook. Then you're doing yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Okay, so we're going to do that 2 more times. So yarn over twice. If you're weaving in, you need to make sure you do that a couple of times. You can't just do it once or twice. So I'm keeping those at the height of my V stitch. Don't worry if you don't want to do this and you want to leave them on the outside. I just thought I'd add this as an extra for this row. 2 yarn overs into the V with the threads there waiting. The green is the one that's going to come through. Yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over 2, yarn over 2. All right, final time. So doing 3 double treble crochets. So the peak of the wave. Then I'll have to get rid of those now. And then I'm going to do a treble and then a half treble. So a treble being the one which you pull through and then pull through 2 and then pull through 2. The half treble being my favourite stitch, where you pull through all 3 and then you've got 3 doubles to go. 1. Ruth says she's all fingers today. It is like a tricky one to kind of get your head around at first, but once you get it, and you, especially when you do like a little sample like this and you see how it grows, you'll be ready to go and get out all your yarn and do a big blanket of it. It's such a beautiful stitch. And then we'll do a half treble. And then we're doing a, I'm finding it hard to say the right words. And then we're doing a treble, yarn over, in, pull through 2, pull through 2. And then we're finishing, it'll be with 2 double trebles, so they're the tallest. So that's 2 yarn overs, in, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Ooh, it's really nasty, this thread. It's obviously been used a lot of times. Ooh. And final time. If anyone out there is looking to make a granny square, has never tried one before, I would 100% recommend just Googling a picture diagram for a granny square, and you won't believe how much easier it is to learn from a diagram than it is to learn from a written instruction, or even just kind of trying to look at it and follow. That's how I got into picture diagrams, is by struggling with granny squares, and then I found a picture and it was brilliant. And you can actually just like use a highlighter pen and you can just kind of mark off what you've done as you go round the granny square, and suddenly you've got a perfect granny square. I'd highly recommend it. Okay, so the next row, like with when you've done your wave row, you're just going to do a row of doubles. So that's just where you just need to chain 1, which I believe I just did. I can't remember actually. Did I do it? Yeah, I think I had. So just chain 1 and then do 12 doubles all the way along the row. 1, 2, 3. And then that is basically the process. I'll pretend to start the next row, but I don't think you need to keep seeing it. You just basically then start at the lower end of the wave. So again, if you are still there, Miles, if you wouldn't mind just quickly putting the picture on one last time. Fab. So can you see now when you get back to the beginning again, you would change the colour on the last yarn over on this row, and then in this one it would be the orange colour, and then you would start with a chain, and then you would do 3 double crochets, and then you would do the taller stitches, the half treble, the treble, and then the 3 double trebles, and that would go on top, and you'd end up with all of the lines kind of interconnecting and the tall bits being on top of the little bits, and vice versa. And like I said, it makes a lovely blanket. When you want to finish it and you want to stop doing wave, all I do on top of it is do a few kind of simple rows of maybe like a half treble, my favorite, several times, and I find it just kind of straightens itself out. It seems to be like totally fine if you then want to move on to a kind of flatter stitch. It ends fairly flat because of the way that you layer them, but yeah, just do a couple of kind of simple rows on top and you'll be ready to do something else. So I'm just going to finish this row off, and I'm happy for my hands to be back on, and we'll I think I'll do like one more stitch today, deciding which one to do, and then I think next week I'll do some extra ones because I'll 100% have figured out the technology by then. Oh, I'm just I'm rolling up this ball and I'm just unraveling it from that, which wasn't the best idea. So let me just find a different colour. I don't need that grey. I'm just going to go on to blue, and I'm thinking what stitch to teach you actually. There's a choice. I might do waffle because I think that might be quite a good option for future stitches, because if you figured out waffle, then you'll be able to understand this process where you use the posts rather than the holes. So let me just get some scissors a second. Okay. So all I'm going to do for my waffle stitch is I'm going to start with a row. Let me just check. I've got my written instructions here, which stitch I do first. I'll post this information afterwards. I've got this kind of printout, and I'll post it in the chat later. What I'm reading here. It's a full row of waffle. That's what you need to know. It's a full row of treble crochet first. Okay, so if you want to do 12 treble crochet, so that would be a chain of 3 to start. I will put my hands back in now. Yeah, Ruth's asked if there's a book with diagrams. I picked one up in the works for like 99p or something. And again, I couldn't believe that I've been crocheting for like 5 years and I hadn't realized that actually what you'll notice now that you've seen how easy it is to follow a diagram, that loads of the crochet books include a diagram, but maybe if you don't really understand what they are, you'll ignore them and you'll read the instructions or maybe look at the pictures. But now if you did understand that, you'll notice there is a picture generally placed with most patterns. So yeah, have a little look. But like I said, I got an amazing one in the works, which just had it's like a basic book of stitches, and it was like less than £2, and I get it out all the time. So here we go. So we've got our 3 stitches, and I'm about to do a full row of trebles. So trebles, we just did it lots of times, but just in case, is yarn over, in, picking up the thread, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. All right, so I'll just quickly whiz away at a line of those. And then you end up using this row in the next row. So you have to start with a row of trebles to get started. So I would turn the camera around today and show you around the studio, but I had a tidy up yesterday, and I'm at that stage where it's so much worse before it's going to get any better, which is so sad because I did really well yesterday, and then right at the end I kind of got a bit carried away and got out boxes of things with random stuff in, and then I've got them all out all over the table. Anyway, I'm kind of regretting starting that. I had all the energy yesterday, and then I was like, oh, actually, I've got to go, and abandoned it. So hopefully that's my afternoon in the sun, is tidying this table. Right, I think that's one more to go. Okay. So we're staying now on the same colour for the next row. Okay, the process of the waffle stitch is more about texture than colour. I tried it once yeah, I'm not sure what it is, with a different color, and I didn't like it. It didn't look right. It didn't offer much of a benefit. So I'm just going to finish that row off, and then I'm going to chain 3 again, because I'm about to do more treble crochets on top of it. All right, so flipping it, and then let's go back down. And I'm going to be using, I'm try and show you. So rather than going into the V's like you normally do, you're going to be using these posts, okay? So these little kind of pillars that are at the bottom of each stitch, maybe easier to see like that, these things here, you're going to be going either in front of them, or, I always find this easy, hard to do, or behind them. So it feels really unnatural for a while, but it's funny, after you do a row of it, you'll suddenly feel like it's really unnatural to put it back through the V like you normally do. All right, so those are your posts there. That part of the stitch, sorry, where's it gone? That part of the stitch there. And I'll try and explain in this funny position how you go into them. So we're going to do 3 of one type and then 3 of the other. You can actually decide how many of each that you do, but 3 is quite nice. You have 3 that are raised, 3 that are lower, 3 that are raised, 3 that are lower. So I quite like that number. It also works out quite well with your 12 sample. So what you're doing is you're doing a yarn over. So ignore the first little post there, and you just use that second one. So the one that's kind of got the posts either side of it. So this one here. You're going to go in on the right side of it and then up through the left side of it. All right, so as my work is, I don't know, would it be better if I did this? Ooh, I'll try and show you like this. So you go in, so this probably isn't very good for, was it Trisha who turned her camera around? Sorry. You're going in through the right-hand side of the post and then coming back out through the left-hand side of the post. So you're literally just going underneath it, scooping underneath it. Then you're putting a yarn over, you're pulling that underneath the post, so you're back. So you're doing a treble crochet, it's just the position of the stitch that's different. And then you're doing a yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. All right, I'll do it from this position too. I'll do it in a few positions, hopefully one of them will get your attention. So doing 2 more of those, so yarn over, into the right-hand side of the next post, coming up and under through the left-hand side of the post, so the post is on top of your crochet hook, then doing your yarn over, so it feels a bit weird because it's dead straight, and then you're pulling that underneath the post, so you have 3 on, and then your yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Okay, that's my second one. I'll try again. Yarn over, next post, so I've done this one. This is the next available one. I'm going underneath on the right hand side and back out through the left hand side. I'm putting a yarn over, pulling it back underneath the post. So I've got 3 on, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, like so. All right, so those are the ones that are underneath, so they end up kind of sticking up on top. And the next ones, we're going to do the deeper ones. The good thing with this stitch, it's really useful if you ever make any jumpers. You can use it for like cuffs and for neck and for the waistline. You can also use it at the end if you make hats. You can just do 1 row of this by your head, and that kind of acts as like, it looks like a ribbed kind of effect, which is nice. So you would just keep going like that. You wouldn't bother doing what we're about to do, is mixing them up. All right, so the next one is the underneath one. I always find this one feels a bit more unnatural. So we're doing yarn over, we're coming up and under through the left-hand side, like on the underside, and then we're going back down. So we've come out through the front and we've gone back down through the back. I'll show that a couple of times and I'll try and change direction. So then you do your yarn over. So just find a way to get your yarn. This one will definitely take a bit more practice. And then pull that through that little space. So you can see it was a little bit fiddly to do. But again, your hands do get used to it. So you've got 3 on, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And then I've got it, that one kind of sits lower than the previous one. So that's a deep weave there. So let's try again from this angle maybe. So yarn over. So I've done that one. So my next one is this post here by itself. I'm coming underneath through the right hand side of it, and then I'm going back down through the left of it. I'm doing a yarn over from behind. Got to make sure you catch him and drag him back through. Quite easy to drop him when you're not used to the process. So you've got 3 on, and then yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. I'll do one more in this position. Yarn over. Next post, this one there's quite busy here, isn't it? Underneath on the right hand side, down on the left hand side, picking up the thread, pulling it through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. You see that? So that's like deep set, and that one's kind of sticking out a bit. So when you have them kind of next to each other, it makes a nice little pattern. So I'll do the next 3 a little bit faster for those who are understanding it. So yarn over, in, right, up, left, yarn over, pull through 2. So then let me know if you have any questions. 1, 2, and 3. And then the underneath one, under right, down left, picking up yarn from behind, yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2. So the stitches I was thinking of teaching next week include something called the Jacob's Ladder. That's fun. Maybe mosaic. I definitely need a camera for that. So let's just hope that I figure that out. And or maybe the bean stitch. That's nice. Oh, there's also the one like the shell stitch, which is good. Ooh. There you go. So I've got like these three that are like lower, higher. So that we don't go the opposite round. These 3 that are higher, and then these three that are lower. So it just makes a nice texture across. If you then wanted to do another row of this, so if you liked it and you wanted to put another row on top, you would start with an entire row of trebles, and then you would decide. You could either put on top exactly the same, so have like a tall row of kind of bits that stick out, or you could do the opposite. So you could start with the ones that go underneath and have those on top. So that on top of these sticky out ones, you'd have flat ones. So that kind of also makes kind of a bit of a nice effect. But yeah, you'd start with a full row of trebles, and then in the next row, you'd make your decision which way round you wanted to do the 3s, so that you have the different effects. So yeah, so I think, like I said, I feel a bit bad. I did plan to do 3 today, but it is quite hard doing it like this. But it seems like lots of you have kept up, so that's great. I'll post that picture in a moment, so you've got a copy of it, and I'll add some text so that you kind of understand the different stitches that we've talked about today, like a written version of them. And then, like I said, I'll do my homework and spend a bit of time figuring out my technology situation, and next week come with lots of energy because I'm going to make up for this and do you 4 stitches. Okay, so like I said, some 4 funny name stitches as always. But yeah, I hope you're getting started on a blanket. And then I think then we've got 1 week off. I think they've got a special week plan for upcycling the week after. I think I'm talking sense now. I'm trying to look at the dates. But I know there's the 4th session is a little bit later, but I'll maybe add details of that in here afterwards, and then you can figure out how to border it. So yeah, if you keep up, I don't know whether you'll be ready for bordering just yet in 4 weeks time, unless you really go for it, but at least you can go back to the videos and you can watch that when you are ready to add a border. And I'll also make sure I explain how to do that cushion if you are doing a smaller version of it, but just a heads up, it's like a long thin rectangle first. All right. Yeah, no questions have come up, I don't think yet. So, but like I said, I always come back and check. So do add any, and I'll come back to you if you need any help with anything. All right, have a lovely afternoon in the sun, and I'm going to get back to my tidying. Speak to you soon. Thanks, Miles, for flicking the camera back and forth. See you all again. Bye.